this week that this interview is about a year in the making.
Other than it was not my day. But when that happens, you need to own that. And I'm not going to make an excuse like.
So as a deck builder, is this a card that you're like kind of on your radar early? Like, do you want to just jump in and mess with this?
I think it's important for me to stay versatile. Like, there's players, like you said, that specialize in one deck. And for me, I just want to play. I want to learn every deck so that I can pivot at the last second if I need to.
We're going to get into that today because there's a lot to talk about. You are definitely well-traveled and well-known in Disney Lorcana. So I'm very excited to get into this.
I want to be the world champion, and I will work as hard as possible to reach that goal. I will literally outwork everybody.
All right, everybody, welcome back to the Forbidden Mountain. Today, I have a very special guest. I actually told someone this week that this interview is about a year in the making because about a year ago, I messaged you, and you're like, oh, I'm kind of busy. I don't have time for it right now. I just never asked again. We got it done, Zach. How are you doing this evening?
I'm great. We're here. I'm glad we're making it happen. Yeah, it was like a year ago when you asked.
It was funny because it was well before organized play was actually announced. And, honestly, at that time, I was just looking to get players that I thought, were definitely going to make a run in organized play because you were going to like every 1K on the. I think it was the week after you drove like 6 hours or some crap to play at a 1K. And I was just like, talk to this guy.
I was just trying to play in anything I could. And that's all we had at the time was 1K. So that was, stupid. Crazy drive,
right? The epitome of 1Ks.
If I got first place, I wasn't making money. So I just wanted to play.
No, you're like, I drove 12 hours round trip, won $350. Yeah, we got there.
Yep.
That is funny. But I mean, we've come a hell of a long way since then.
Gosh.
We're going to get into that today because there's a lot to talk about. You are definitely well-traveled and well-known in Disney Lorcana. So I'm very excited to get into this. But I want to start with the present before we touch on the past. So right now, we were just talking about a little itty bitty bit off screen. But Disney Lorcana, Arcasia's Island, it's here, it's there. We actually just found out that there's like less than 8 reveals or some crap to come, which is actually insane because it's only been about 8 days since we've started. And it's pretty remarkable to me that this quickly and still, in all honesty, like 3 weeks away from set release, we basically have the entire set minus enchantments. How do you feel about like that level of a real season this quick, and then kind of like knowing that we're gonna have 3 weeks to sit on this before we even open a pack?
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I'm not like super huge into reveals. Like whenever they come for me. It's all good either way. I do think this is kind of an important time in the history of Lorcana. Like they're springing some big changes on us now. Like not only just dual colored cards, but like the universal shift is a powerful thing. Like that has a lot of potential in the future. And then just the existence of the puppy shift kind of implies that there could be any kind of shifts for types in the future.
The same thing, right? Yeah. So it definitely looks like, if we wanted a Madrigal shift, we could just have it. Like they set the precedent in many different ways. Like so simple, but like, hey, we know now. We know, right? It's funny because it's probably something you would never ask for. You'd be like, the moment you're here, you're like, oh well, what can we do with it?
I do like that they're kind of managing it. Like it's not they're bringing on all these big changes, but like there's nothing that seems too oppressive. Like so, I like that they're introducing it and doing it in a healthy way, whereas other games in the past have not done that. So
like Duel Links, it's one of those things. I think a couple weeks ago, Dick had said like if you had talked to certain levels of players from other games, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, why? Like we always thought it would be, or which had already happened."
Yeah.
And then there's the newer players that are just like, "Oh, it's cool, it's different. I don't understand, I don't get it." But I think especially listening today on the main stage interview, I thought Steve did a wonderful job. He also did a dev theory for the first time in a while. That's on the main Discord as well, and he just goes through and kind of talks about why it happened, what it kind of gave them the space to do. And I think that that's really nice because it's just another level of like a lever that you can pull for designers that say, hey, if we want to make something and we don't want it to be insane, we can always just say, hey, you can only do it here. And I think that is nice. Well, I think we have all the dual cards now actually today. So going through and looking at all of them, some of them are exciting. Some of them are just like, okay, you're just here for the lore and that's cool. You're here for someone. Someone is excited that you're here. That is for sure. Might not be me, but someone is. So it is nice that now that we have them and we kind of see a full scope of what they're about, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of impact the metagame in all honesty.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's like you said, it's a great way to balance the game. You can make a really powerful card, but then you can have it balanced by now it's only in this color combination. So yeah, I think it's genius to lock it into those two colors.
Agreed. So before we started, I asked you what were some of your favorite cards from the Real Z's and some of the cards that you're excited to play with. Let's start with the easy one, Giant Cobra. This whole season you've been playing Amethyst Steel.
Yeah,
This is like just a duh include in most Amethyst Steel decks, right?
right. Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious after earning my World's Invite with Amethyst Steel that this would be the card I'm most excited to test with. It brings more reach than we already had with Goad and Rose. It's overstated and Amethyst Steel, I love it. So yeah, great card there.
What do you think about the Vanish keyword with illusions? How relevant do you think it is?
It depends on if we get some crazy like actions. Like it makes actions like improvise way better to where you're cycling, getting the card, and now you can kill my 4/4 snake with your stupid improvise.
Sure.
So I think
And
it can be relevant. I think it's another genius way of balancing cards, though.
yeah,
It's really good.
yeah, it's one of those two because no one's playing improvise, right? So it's one of those. It's like, hey, if because this card exists, all of a sudden people get to play improvise.
Yeah, right.
Isn't that already a success?
Exactly. Yeah. It balances that card in itself, and then it brings up unplayable cards in a way too.
Right.
The
Hey,
only thing that makes me a
what
little
was
sad
that?
about this card, this card plays more towards the Doc build of Amethyst Steel, which I do not like. I
Hey,
love the
hater.
I I know you're all about it, but I I love Rabbit. I love the long grindy Rabbit games where you're building up a hand and stuff, and the Snake definitely plays more towards Doc. So
Yeah, I mean, I still think it's going to find a home in both versions for what
it
it's.
will for sure.
You have a lot of the deck can be pretty versatile, so you can just have 10
Mm,
cards in your deck, and you can be like.
yeah.
Sometimes I think recently you were playing four Zeus, right? Not every
Yep.
game you need four Zeus. You're just like, all right, well, it's really easy. I'm just going to game two Lord Assist and move on with life. That's what I
Yep.
think he does so well, and I think that even at the cost of having Vanish, you're like, all right, like no matter what, I'm getting a 1-for-1 out of this, unless
Mm,
they're playing a bad action because the game has developed into this world where we're going to be playing cards like this, then that's a whole other
yeah.
layer to the game that I'm actually kind of excited for. It's like the game within the game. Like, how deep are we going to go?
Yep.
And right now, I think we've only seen the 4 vanished characters. So if Cobra ends up being, the only one that's played, how much
Yeah.
of it
No.
that like how much is it going to really get? Like people aren't just going to play improvise in their deck if there's
No.
only a very low amount of vanished
Yeah.
characters in the world. So I think it's going to be weird, in all honesty. But we'll see how that goes over time. The other character here is Mushu. Why are we excited for Mushu?
I mean, it's been a long time coming, even having Mushu in the game. The art's fantastic. And honestly, it's mainly because I just want Ruby still to be a deck somehow. And anything that pushes the needle even a little bit, because Mushu only pushes it a little bit, but anything that makes it even closer to the reality of that being a real competitive deck, I'm all for. So, yeah, I like the Mushu.
I think the interesting thing about Mushu for me is that it, the worst part about Ruby Steel is there's like nothing. There's no identity. We have no idea. There's not aside from a couple weeks ago at SSG, we saw this crazy Shark Fan and Flames deck. And you're like, all right, there's something here, cool. But aside from that, it just has nothing. You don't know. Like you
Yeah,
don't go, oh, I'm gonna build Ruby Steel like to do a thing. You just don't know what that is. I think Mushu at least tells you like, hey guys, like this is what we kind of want this to do.
mm,
So I wonder if that's just going to push people in a general direction. I agree with you. Mushu has been something that people have wanted
mm,
legitimately since they started spoiling the first 10 cards of Disney Lorcana, probably. So the idea that we have it now, I think that just like even if it's not good,
yeah, exactly.
people are just like, I don't care, man. I'm bringing Mushu. Like I don't
Yeah,
even care.
exactly. Yeah, I'm just excited that it exists.
Right, right. And I do think it's cool. And it's for so long we saw all these challenge matters cards that
Mm.
I mean, have you ever played against a Shere Khan? Like, have you ever sat
I don't
across?
know that I have.
I think Queen of Hearts I have definitely sat across from, but not
Mm,
not like like more than one hand on a count. Like, but at least I've
yeah.
seen that card in play. This I think you'll start seeing a lot more of them. Just like we'll see how many goes, see how many fit. But I think it's interesting because I do agree with you. I like the idea that Duel Links, if they're going to push a brand new
Mm,
thing, and I think that that's what's cool. I think now that the designers gave you an opportunity to say, "Hey, this is what they're for," maybe it just pushing enough people to say, figure it out.
Yeah.
We'll have to
It's
see.
something.
So I put in two cards that came up today. It was pretty controversial, and I'm going to get your take on them. The first
Mm.
one is Sapphire Coil. Okay, Sapphire
Yeah.
Coil was announced, and it made the internet a little mad. Zach, were you of the
Yeah.
same feeling for this card, Zach?
So, I mean, I like making the jokes about it. It's funny.
Yeah,
But also, yeah, the card, I don't love that it exists because Ice Block can be really oppressive at times. And what is balancing about Ice Block is that it's uninkable.
yeah,
So it makes your deck less consistent. Whereas now you have an inkable one that takes away two strength.
yeah,
Granted, it has more requirements. Like if you're in a top deck war in the end game, you're
yeah.
not inking, so you're not getting to use it. But I just don't like that you have the consistent option of Ice Block now. That's the main thing with Ice Block. It was a little bit balanced there, but this doesn't feel as
Yeah,
much.
It's really funny. I think a lot of the comments have been around the end game, and while Ice Block is very good, if Ice Block's in
Mhm.
play and you get to turn it sideways, and all of a sudden your Sisu gets to hit more cards, it's like it feels really great. But what I'm honestly worried about is that the -2, like on the first 5 turns of the game,
Yeah,
feels
it's brutal.
more
Now
than bad.
Brawl's insane now with that
Brawl, and
card.
honestly, even Human Sisu, they literally
Yeah,
just like your Lawrence. Yeah, I don't. It's not a 4/4 anymore. I don't care. Like
no,
like it turns so many cards that we have kind of played to prevent those things from happening, and now
yeah,
you're like, now they just happen. You're like,
yeah.
that's what I'm worried about that more than anything. I'm really worried that it's going to handicap that like turns 3, 4, 5, and 6 so much
Yeah,
that it makes it that much more difficult for those decks to even get to 20. That's where I'm really, really fearful of. But the card's obviously very good. It does have different
yeah.
levels of requirement. I'm with you. Being inkable just means like, all right, in this game it's not good. I should get to ink it. Like,
Exactly. Yeah, that's the problem with it.
you're just like, all right, well, I don't need it in this game. It's just, so
Yep, that's the problem with it.
that's like, whew, that's a powerful thing to be able to be inked. But listen, I'm a big fan. Like, good cards are good. We adapt.
Yeah,
When's last time you put Benji in your deck? It's been a
it's
while.
been
You
a
might
while.
have Benji now. Like it just might be like a little game within the game again, where you're like, all right, I know everyone's gonna play this Sapphire Coil because it's cracked. I just gotta respect it. I don't know. We'll see. What about Ink Geyser? How do you feel about Ink Geyser?
Um, I think it definitely has potential to be insane. It might not be right now, but it kind of it's scary for the future as cards keep coming in, and yeah, it's scary how oppressive it could be. That's the scary part.
How do you feel about it like as a deck builder? We're gonna talk about this a little bit later, but you definitely have been kind of part of like slightly ahead of the meta at times. So as a deck builder, is this a card that you're like kind of on your radar early? Like, do you want to just jump
Yeah,
in and mess with this?
absolutely. Yeah, uh, Emerald Sapphire is already on the cusp of being really great. So any kind of tools you can test out, yeah, I think it's great. And
Yeah,
it plays into the strategy of like give them a big hand and draw a Clarabelle, and you're also punishing their inkwell. So yeah, I think it's definitely something I'll be testing heavily.
I think it's really interesting because it does create these board states that like we're not at all used to.
Mm,
So when you can kind of like create a card that way, I think it actually kind of it has the ability to alter game states a ton. And because of that, a lot of these decks, we talk about the Sapphire Coil decks, like these red blue decks, they're all about getting to 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 lore,
mm,
ink and play, and then just being like this turret down shark deck. Well, if you say on turn 5 that like nope, start over, that takes away their whole end game. It sets them back pretty big. And like what I really the first way I looked at this card was kind of like an Emerald Sapphire Pete. It was just like, you know what? Like I am not going to
mm.
lose the beef crate today. Like
Yeah,
we're just not going to play that game. So I think it really does introduce a ton of choices in like deck building. And I also look at some of the cards of the past that just have not gotten a lot of love, and something that maybe needed a card like this. I look at Oswald. Oswald's a card that sticks out to me in
mm,
a big way. Like you're for Oswald, it's very similar to the coil, where like you need ink to turn them on. Well, now all of a sudden we could like turret Oswald a couple times, pick our cards back up, do it again.
mm.
You're always gonna have like a freedom of just like being able to play off the top and just assembling this board. And that deck might be able to just cheaply win through like shenanigans. But if you're just
Definitely.
doing all this crap for free and your opponent's like, man, what am I gonna do? I only have four, 3 or 4 ink every turn.
Mhm.
I just think it's one of those where, to me, as a deck builder, I think it has like a lot of potential, and it's kind of scary. Like if there was a DLC
Mm.
at the end of March, I don't know that we would have it by then. Like I don't know if anyone
Right,
can, like,
exactly.
figure out this deck by the end of March. But I'm with you. I think as time grows, as more time goes on, all it takes is like one idea that's close enough for anyone to just run with it, and I think that's what
Yeah.
it's going to be.
This is a card that everyone is going to write off, and then someone shows up to a DLC, dominates everybody, and now it's like, yeah, it's something that someone could crack out of nowhere.
And it might not even be a DLC either, right? Like it could just be. I mean, we're seeing every single week now these massive third-party events.
Yeah.
SSG a couple weeks ago was 150 players. This past weekend in Germany, 200 players. Like all it takes is even one of those for everyone to look at, especially players that are competitive. Like we're
Mhm.
looking at all these tournaments, we're reading through the lines and seeing something pops up out of nowhere. You're like, oh, okay, that's different. Wonder what that's
Yep.
about. So we'll see. But I think to me, after seeing pretty much the entire set now, Ink Geyser's the one card that stands out, saying someone somewhere is going to break this.
For sure.
So Zach, I think you have done a really good job in your Lorcana history of being pretty damn consistent. And what's really interesting to me about that is that you're the type of player that, in my humble opinion, have broken the mold that the most successful players have been. We have seen players that have continuously done well in Disney Lorcana challenges, but they have played the same deck in every
Mm.
in every event. You've not done that. All right. You have literally come in and almost in every DLC you've played a slightly different variation of a last deck or just a completely different new iteration in
Mhm.
itself. And when I was looking at today, as I was kind of setting this up, is like the meta prediction that you must go through. All right, what you're looking at here are the top 16 decks from the last six DLCs or NACC that we have
Wow.
both participated in. So you can see towards the end there, Ruby Sapphire was obviously the most dominant deck in the format, like in terms of getting into a top 16 position. But through each of these events, you can see there's a lot of versatility, a lot of choice, and yet in every single one of these events, you chose something different. So in Fort
Yeah.
Worth, you played Amber Emerald. In
Mhm.
I'm sorry, in Toronto, you played Emerald Steel. In Vegas, you played something else. Like you've continuously just skipped it, like, right, like you just said the whole time, like, no, like this is what I believe is best for me, or is it really what
Mhm.
you believe was best for the tournament?
So it's both. Yeah, so I played in all six North American DLCs. I made day 2 and 4 of them, and all 4 different decks.
M+1, you traveled all the way to Italy, right? So
I did. That was
you're
crazy.
you're one of the few people on this planet that can say they've been to more DLCs than I have. So I'm a little jealous from that aspect. I didn't travel over to Europe for one, but when it comes to seasoned players, I don't know how many more people have played more rounds in 2 game format than you have.
Yeah, not a lot for sure, not a lot. But yeah, I think it's important for me to stay versatile. Like there's players like you said that specialize in one deck, and for me, I just want to play. I want to learn every deck so that I can pivot at the last second if I need to, and be able to beat the meta that I expect on that exact day, the cards that I expect on that exact day.
Now, how often would you say you pivot? Or like, I guess the better question is at what point before we get to a Lorcana challenge, before we get there, have you already decided your deck?
Yeah, I wish I could say it was really early every time, but it very much depends. Like in Atlanta, I had my deck a month before, and
Okay.
I just grinded out for a month straight. In Las Vegas, I came to Vegas on Wednesday night thinking I was playing Amethyst Steel,
Mhm.
and dude, it wasn't working. I completely built a whole new deck Thursday evening, Emerald Steel. That was before anyone even played Emerald Steel.
Sure.
Uh, yeah, so I literally changed my deck the Thursday before, so I had like a day and a half to learn an entire new deck, one that wasn't even on anyone's radar because it wasn't played at all. So I built a whole new deck and had to learn it 2 days
Emerald
before.
Steel
So
or Amber Emerald?
no, it was Emerald still. This was the same tournament that Zan won with it. Like this was
In
post
Vegas?
Bucky.
Okay.
Yes, yeah. I
Okay.
didn't realize. I had no idea Zan and other players were going to play Emerald still either. We kind of just all showed up and surprised people with it.
Sure.
So I was the number 1 seed there.
Mm.
Uh, After learning a deck in a day and a half. So it really just depends on how the prep's going. Hopefully, I lock it in early, but sometimes the day before.
I mean, it's funny because in weird ways perks to both. But I think that that's where like the versatility comes up. Like this
Mhm.
idea that I'm with you. I think in order to be one of the best players in the game, you have
Mhm.
to be knowledged in every deck, like at least the best decks, right? Like in whatever given meta it is, if you can say, hey, like even if you just have put 10, 15, 20 hours in a deck, you can say, hey, I played this for
Mhm.
20 hours. So
Yeah,
even if it's not yours, even if it's not like something that you vibe with, you can still say, I still did it, I still understand it. And in what I really express to people, and I think this is the one takeaway that people don't get, is that by playing it, you literally teach yourself the weakness, And I think that that's
absolutely.
me a big thing.
Mhm. Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it is. I had another one because you're saying I couldn't get them all right. Unfortunately, Dreamborn didn't start this until a little bit later. But this is just the showcase, like
Mm.
38th here with Emerald, 33rd with the Emerald Steel, and obviously your top 8 finish at Worlds here with Amethyst Steel. Now, this is just 3 of those events that we were talking about. I
Yeah.
believe you said you had 4 top 8 or top 4 day 2s of DLCs and then top 8 of Worlds, right? I mean,
Yeah, so yeah, I was so you can add 17th in Chicago, and then I was number 3 seed
right,
in Atlanta, which ended up into like 17th or something like that too.
right. So yeah, you played. You did play Amethyst Steel in Atlanta, which we covered, and then you played Amber Steel in Chicago.
Yep.
And ironically, is that the Amber Steel in Chicago, like that set my own trajectory in like the summer months in a totally different land base. Because when I first looked at your list specifically, I was like, man, Pride Lands is so good. And it was a
It
card that
was.
I just had not tested yet, if I was being completely honest. So when I saw that I think you were first overall in Chicago
It
too, right?
was.
Or
Yeah.
really close, whatever it was. I
Yeah, I was
remember,
number 1 there.
yeah. So like this is the now you're saying you did it in Chicago, you did it in Vegas. You had 2 number 1 seeds.
Yep.
I don't know how many people can say that. I think that's like you're the only
I,
one,
I'm
right?
definitely the only. Yeah, I'm the only one with number 1 seed twice.
Yeah. So I guess there's a little bit of frustration there because obviously you're 1 seed going in
Yep.
2,
Lots of it.
and you couldn't break out of the top 32, right? So I guess like what was it like to get top 16 at Worlds and then get your Worlds invite?
Yeah, if anyone watched the stream at North American Championships, like I cried in the interview. I was so emotional because yeah, I was number 1 seed twice. I was number 3 seed. Like I kept getting all these amazing day ones, and then something would happen. Like in Vegas, I won 12 straight games day 1, and literally 0 of them were close. And then in top 64, I get 2 unplayable hands, and I don't get to play the game.
Yeah,
So like you go from this massive high of dominating 12 games in a row to
yeah,
losing and you're out. So I was super emotional in the interview. It was amazing. Yeah, just the best feeling ever.
that's pretty great. It's one of those where obviously you got your invite to nationals, like whether or not
Mm,
it was you earned it, you got to pass down, whatever. You put yourself in a position to get that
yeah,
invite.
exactly.
So no matter which way you look at it, you're not in nationals without how you did in day ones.
Yeah, for
So you
sure.
set yourself up like position wise to get those. So the idea that you get to go in to the Continental Championship and then get there, get top 16, and then get that win, uh, I think to me that's like a lot of like, okay, like this was certainly the goal today.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
it's one of those like hard moments to replace for sure. Um, so speaking of DLCs, while we're here, let's do a little propaganda, right? Um,
Mm.
what are we thinking right now with the potential for year 2?
So what I want to see, obviously, more DLCs, as many as possible, and then I want everyone that wants to play in one to be able to play in one. Like it's crazy that they sell out in literally like 1 second. So
Yeah,
that's the number 1 goal: have more DLCs and have everyone be able to play in them. Um, And what I would love to see, like, I know a lot of people argue 2 game format, best of 3, whatever. What's the most important to me is that we could add more rounds to the Swiss rounds.
yeah,
A 2,000 player tournament is not meant to be played with 9 rounds of Swiss, and then you cut to a single elimination top 64. That's so much variance. And the best players in the world benefit when there's more Swiss rounds and take out the variance.
yeah.
Like, like we should do 9 rounds day one and like say 5 rounds or something day two, and then you can cut straight to a top eight from there. Like
100%.
that reduces variance so much.
Yeah.
And maybe it's selfish because I would have made like at least 3 top eights probably with my day one performance.
I mean,
But
I don't even think I wouldn't even take it as selfish for what it's worth. I think that it's like by design. You said it, and I've said it a million times. 2,000 players is not 9 rounds. There is no
uh,
tournament on
it makes
earth
no sense.
that is 9 rounds for 2,000 players. So I would love. Trust me, I would have a much better day two record if we were
Yeah,
putting to some bigger number or playing more rounds. So I'm a huge fan of this. But it is one of those that I think the trickle down effect does so much too. Like you said, variance. Like I agree that the variance is
mm-hmm.
crazy, but it also, if you said that we were playing, 13 or 14 rounds, whatever it might be, to cut to a day two, and whatever that position is, it also means there's a lot less, intentional drawing in day one
Yeah, it
because
solves so much.
every point matters. Like you can't just
Mhm.
be like, oh, I'm 6-0, like that my day's over. Like, you actually can't do that. You're like, oh wait, like there's
Right.
6 rounds left or whatever it might be. So I
Yeah.
think there's a lot of that could go on to it. But yeah, I'm with you. I think that right now, even if we just use year one as just like, hey, I get it, you were trying stuff out, and some of it clearly works. And honestly, I don't even really dislike the 2 game format. I just dislike
Yeah.
the tournament format. I'm
Yes,
with you.
that's exactly it.
If 2,000 players to 64 single game, I mean, that just sucks. Like,
Yeah, it's terrible. It's so bad. The
it-
variance is just brutal, man.
yeah. So I'm definitely in favor of more rounds, more things. Is there a particular? Obviously, you went to 7 DLCs. Is there a particular location you would love to see a DLC?
I mean, it really doesn't matter to me. I go there to play the tournaments. I don't really do a lot of sightseeing. So
Hey, we went to Disneyland.
we did. That's the one that I did go. I went a week early and
Okay,
did that some of the stuff there.
that's fair. That's fair.
So I would love to see Charlotte just because it's close to me.
Yeah, that's. I mean, I can't even blame. I can't even hate on you. I would take Charlotte also because it means that it's on the East Coast and it's not
Mhm.
awful.
Yeah.
It's totally achievable. But yeah, I don't know. I think that it's a little crappy that we just don't know, right? Like how
Yeah.
how insane is it, the idea that we came off of NACC, and like you just didn't know like where we're going next. We went from, granted, we're probably a little spoiled, right? We were a little spoiled. We had a
I
lot
don't
to get
know.
in a short period of time, but we don't know. Like how much does it suck to not know?
It's pretty terrible. I'm invited to the World Championships, but I can't book my stuff now. I just have to wait on prices to keep going up. Like people have to prepare, like they have jobs and stuff they need to plan around.
Yeah.
It's definitely a little frustrating, but oh well.
Um, Ideally, if they announce Worlds, when are you hoping it is?
I mean, at this point, I think it's probably going to be around the June area.
Yeah,
So I
I
don't
think
know.
you're right. I think every week that goes by, I like almost guess another month goes by.
And I am curious how they're going to add those extra 4 players. I don't think we'll just be at 28. I think it'll get to 32 players somehow.
uh,
So I'm assuming 2 more DLCs, but I don't know.
I think it would be. I mean, obviously, I don't know. Like, if we're being honest,
Yeah.
they were figuring out as they were going along, right? Like,
Mhm.
we didn't know that DLC winners had Worlds invites until now.
Right. That's crazy.
So like, we don't know what their plan actually was for Worlds in the end. Um, so with that, as much as I agree
Yeah.
with you, I think 32 is a way cleaner number. It makes a lot more
Mhm.
sense. But like, maybe they just run with 28. Who knows?
Yeah.
Honestly, like,
I would love to know if they know right now.
yeah, I don't think they do. So it's one of those where, at this point, I almost I just want to get it down to, so like, all right, cool.
Yeah.
Like, if we know when that is, it means we know when the next season is starting. So
Yes.
it's like, I hope it's just a snowball of information of just like, all right,
Mhm.
here it is. Here's the next thing. Here's what we're doing. Um, and I know you don't care about this, but I do hope if there is open, if it is like Worlds is like an open thing where people can come and at least like play in side events. I, as a
Oh yeah.
attendee, will certainly be there. Hope there's actual side events and not the debacle that NACC had. But that's just me. I'm a little selfish, I guess.
Yeah. No, I think that's important. You want to grow your game, so you want as many people as possible there.
Yeah,
So it makes
yeah.
too much sense.
It's so weird to me if they're like, oh, it's just going to be like the 28 players and
Uh,
like a small staff and like I I think I think that like certain communities get away with that. Like that's kind of how it's done in Magic nowadays. Like they have like this small itty bitty thing and it's whatever. But like if you look at Pokemon and you're from
yeah.
Pokemon, I remember watching clips of Worlds last year and I'm like, that's what Lorcana should be. Like we have that many fans. Like you have that many people that want to show up in Orlando and just be excited to be there. And
Mhm.
I'm very hopeful that we get something at least remotely close to that. Like obviously I don't expect like some 10,000
Yeah.
venue, but I'm hoping that it's like you can have people in the room. It'll be a big deal when you guys are playing. You'll have, an audience kind of like I'm kind of hoping that we at least get that.
Yeah. Pokemon Worlds is a major, major thing. Like it's a huge event.
It's like a super
People, yeah, people go there and they don't do anything. They just chill. Like it's
yeah.
just to be there. So
Yeah.
I know we won't get there in the first year, not to that level, anyways.
No,
But
I just hope it's like
but
not some small box. Like don't
yeah, for
that's
sure.
all that's all
It doesn't even make sense as a business to have it as a small box of 28 players. You
yeah.
can like there's so many opportunities with a huge event. So
Not to mention it's in Disney World. So like
yeah,
give people a reason to go to
right.
Disney World.
Very true.
Like,
Very
just give
true.
people a reason. I never went to Disneyland before, and you told me
I
kind of
didn't either.
Anaheim. So I'm like, all right, I guess I'll go to Disneyland. Like, all right,
Hmm.
you got me. Oh, all right, Zach, we're gonna play a fun game. Okay,
Okay.
we play this all the time. It's called Repeat After Me. For those of you at home and for yourself here that don't know, I'm gonna say a sentence, and I just want you to repeat the sentence and then continue on with the answer.
Okay. Let's
You
do
got
it.
it? We're good. Winning a World's Invite felt.
Mm. Winning a World's Invite felt amazing, relieved, every emotion you can think of. That's why I cried in the interview, because a dream come true.
Yeah, yeah. We kind of touched on it, but I had to I had to get in there. All right, so one thing I always tell new players is
One thing I always tell new players is to be patient. You're not going to get good overnight. I've been playing card games for 20 years, and I was not always good at them. So be patient. It takes time, and yeah, that's number one advice.
how often do you like interact with new players in your community?
Um, I guess at set championships quite a bit. A lot of people come up to me and talk to me, and it's awesome.
What's your scene down there? Is it nice in your area?
Yeah, it's pretty competitive. We have Luca, the 15-year-old, his whole team. Yeah, he's incredible. Lots of amazing players here. It's really competitive.
Nice. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. This one might be a little bit more difficult for you, but I'll give you a moment to think about it. Right.
Okay.
My favorite metagame in Disney Lorcana was.
Hmm. My favorite metagame in Disney Lorcana. I really liked set three. Set three was really, really, really good. And I also like the one that we're in now, minus like the half shark's not super fun to play against, but I do like this meta too. If I had to pick one, I'm going to say set three.
Yeah, I will say I think they're very close to the same.
Mm-hmm.
But I will say that I feel like there's a little bit more power now.
Yeah.
And then, what I like most about it is that, you played an Amethyst Steel mid-range deck. I played an Amethyst Steel mid-range deck. Others play Amethyst Steel dock decks. The Amber Steel deck, there's, 2 or 3 different versions of that.
Yeah.
Ruby Amethyst kind of still mostly Ruby Amethyst, but now Ruby Sapphire has like kind of 2 different versions of it. So I like the idea that, yes, we are this wide variety metagame, and it felt very close to what set 3 Into the Inklands felt
Mm-hmm.
like. But not only is it that, it's like you're not even like, hey, if I'm a Ruby Sapphire guy, I have choices. If I'm an Amethyst Steel guy, I have choices. So
Yeah.
I think that's what I really particularly like about this metagame. The best card in Disney Lorcana is.
Oh my gosh. The best card in Disney Lorcana is Merlin Rabbit. I love that card. I'm like super happy anytime I can play that in a deck. Just because of the consistency it brings. Like I don't have to worry about did I draw my whole new world or I didn't or whatever. Like I can just play this. I know I'm getting at least 2 cards out of it. So it's probably not actually the best card, but to me it's the best card.
I mean, let's be honest, its record is pretty good.
Yeah.
It won. It was in the winning deck of both Continental Championships. It won multiple DLCs. I think it's pretty fair claim. I don't know that everyone would agree with that, but
Right.
I think that like when you talk about the greats, you're like, well, listen, it's got a track record that we can follow. So I think it's kind of fair. I think it's kind of fair. I think that I already know the answer to this, but we already talked about. But maybe you'll prove me wrong.
Okay.
Most memorable moment in Disney Lorcana is.
Well, obviously making it to top 8 at North American Championships for sure.
Fair.
Walking on the stage in the award ceremony, yeah, by far.
What about the second most then?
That's tough. That's really tough. I have lots of bad memories.
I mean, we could talk. Like, most memorable doesn't mean it has to be good, right? Like,
but yeah, we'll stay away from the bad ones. I guess.
All right.
I guess just learning that I got the pass down from 17th place in Chicago. That was pretty good.
I don't know how. I don't even know how public that is. How did you? Oh, was that like it was decided in the room, right? You figured it out in the room.
No, I didn't know it. One of the I can't remember exactly who posted it on Twitter. Someone that works with Ravensburger literally confirmed it on Twitter that I had it.
Yeah, you're right. So, because Chicago was the first time it could have been passed down.
Yeah, because it was the second event. Yeah.
And I guess we never got a confirmation that they would. Is that really how that
right? Yeah.
Okay.
We didn't even know at the time if pass downs happened. So like
you were just like at home and someone tagged you on Twitter and you're like, oh shit.
Yeah. Basically.
Very, very fair. Very, very fair. So, moving on from repeat after me. You played in 7 DLCs. You played in North American Continental Championships. I know that you've traveled to third-party events. You were at SSG last weekend with me. What drives Zach Bivens in Disney Lorcana?
What drives Zach Bivens? I think what drives Zach Bivens is just being the best version of myself that I possibly can. I want to be the world champion, and I will work as hard as possible to reach that goal. I will literally outwork everybody. And then along with that, it's like equally important that I use the platform that I'm lucky enough to have to like share kindness and encouragement to everybody I can in the community. It's something like that's basically the reason why I have Twitter, so I can encourage no matter who you are. Because I've learned a lot of lessons through my 20 years of card games. There's a lot of hard moments, and while I share all the good ones, I think it's equally as important that I share the bad moments that I have, because I can use that to share advice that I've kind of picked up along the way.
It's very fair. Going into season 2, someone that wants nothing more but to get a Worlds qualification. Like, what do you tell that person? How do you get a person from making day 2 of DLCs to saying like this is the commitment you have to get a Worlds qualification?
That's tough. I kind of prepare for DLCs like very, very, very strangely compared to anyone else. Like I don't have a team and I'm not part of any testing groups. Like it's really weird how I do it. Like I literally will sit down and play both decks myself. That's 99% of my testing. So it's a little hard to recommend that for other people. But taking everything seriously, like your preparation, like I go beyond the cards. I really think that there's factors important as well. Like I have said it many times before, I go to the gym and I run tons because it makes me better at card games. And people don't see the connection there, but like there's been studies in chess that chess players burn 6,000 calories a day in tournaments. It's like take every single thing that you can seriously. Don't stay up till 3 a.m. testing, get the good sleep. Just be serious about everything, and then don't overreact when you fail, because you're going to fail sometimes too, and it's part of the process.
I'm so glad you brought that up. I didn't include it, but I'm going to add it now in editing here. You had a tweet from last weekend where you finished 12th in the 10K on Saturday, and I think you went maybe 1-3 or 0-3 drop in the Sunday 5K. You were out very early. I saw you playing in a side event pretty early. You made a tweet that I don't think a lot of players would have done. And I retweeted it and I said what I said in the tweet. But to me, failure is inevitable. It happens. Like we're not perfect. We're not robots. We're not AI. We can't figure out everything. Like it's not what it is. And I think very often you see a player that has a bad day and they'll make a tweet and they'll say something and they'll say something, and then they'll always be a but. You
Yep,
know,
always.
there was no but. There was nope. Today wasn't my day. Live and learn. Go to the next one. And I think that that is so important because you are a face of the community. You are a face of Lorcana that people are going to go and say, oh, you know what? If Zach Bivens can have a bad day, I can have a bad day. And I just think that like stuff like that, how you just said, that's part of your drive. That's part of your whole thing. It's like those comments honestly are important. They really are. I wish I'll go to the extent of I wish more people had the balls to admit honestly.
Exactly. Yeah, everybody wants to share the good and nobody wants to share the bad. And I think it's equally as important if if you have the platform that I have, because it does not matter who you are. You're gonna have bad days. They're gonna come. I was 6-2 in the 10K, really close to the top 8, and then literally won 3 the next day. Nothing changed other than it was not my day. But when that happens, you need to own that. And I'm not gonna make an excuse like I could sit there and talk about how my opening hand one game was all 4 Calhouns, rabbit. Like I couldn't play the game, but I'm not going to sit there and talk about that in these things. Just take accountability and move on from it. It's the best thing you can do.
It's funny because that specific opening hand is a comment that brings me back to an interview I did with Steve a few months back, and the reason why there's uninkables in the game because it created variance. And it's funny because we can blame the variance, but you didn't do that. You're just like, yeah, you know what? That was it. No big, we move on.
Well, it's important that we have variance too. You don't I don't know. The best players aren't always going to win. Everyone needs to have a chance no matter what. I think that's important for the game to survive.
That I totally agree with. So we've already touched on this a few times here, but again, this is that where you walked on stage, you high five Steve.
Yeah.
I'm a big Steve fan. I love him to death. He's one of the most cheerful people on the planet. And you could see, even in that, whoever captured this picture, A+ to them.
Yeah.
Because you're just like, yeah, Cloud9.
Dude, couldn't hold it together.
So here we are, February 22. We don't know when Worlds is. Do you still have plans? How's important? You came down to SSG a couple weeks ago, and I said this a couple of times for me now. How important is it to support these third party events during these times where we don't know when the next official event is?
Yeah, I think it's important. It's hard. It's hard to make it out to all these different ones,
sure,
especially when the value's not there. So I don't know. I think it is important, and especially when they're doing such above and beyond like SSG did. I don't even want to know how much money they lost on that weekend.
Yeah,
it's absurd. So
it's from a comment that I had heard from the position that I was in that weekend, it's not about the money. So
it clearly is not.
And listen, I get it, right? Not everyone can do what SSG is doing. And I don't even think people need to, right?
No, they don't.
But honestly, even this week, I had seen an event, a 5K coming up in Wisconsin, which I was like, oh, that's awesome. That's something here I haven't really seen much. There's an event that's going on in Arizona. There's an event in March in Raleigh. So it's nice to see that these other events that are popping up and we're kind of getting a chance at them. Because, when you have the trendsetters, when you have CCS, down in Stone Mountain, Georgia, saying, hey, we're getting 200 plus players pretty much every time we run one of these. It's possible we can do it. And then SSG's, they've capped out the last 2 events. And honestly, they probably would have kept out the other 2 if anyone knew who they were before then.
Yeah.
But now their name is out there. Now people know. And I think that all it takes is a couple people to do it for everyone to go, okay, theory's been proven. Success leaves clues. Let's give it a shot. So that's what I'm hoping for. It's also, for me, it's very important that I do my best to advertise those things because I think that without it over the next 6 months, we're going to be very bored people.
That's what I was going to say. Yeah. We need to support anyone that's trying to fill this downtime. 100%. For sure.
Bivens, it has been honestly a really fun time. This was a picture I took with you ironically in the Toy Story store in Disneyland, and it was funny because I had just ran into B Squared 10 minutes beforehand. I was like, oh man, wow. I was like, I'm just getting lucky today. I'm just catching people on randomness. And it really is. I think that over the year, you at every moment that I've met you and every conversation we've had, you have had that respect level of just like, this is who I am, this is like the person that I want to be, and this is like how I want to be in the community. And I think you've done such a good job of that. It's sad to me that it took me a year to get you on the channel. To be honest,
We made it happen.
we did make it happen. Is there anyone that you'd like to shout out or anything like that before we close this up?
Just shout out to the entire Lorcana community. Just the amount of support I've received over this first year is just truly unbelievable. Like the amount of people that come up to me at DLCs for pictures or sign a card or playmat or something is honestly unbelievable. And then all the nice comments and stuff online, like I really appreciate it. So shout out to literally everyone just being so amazing in the community.
That's awesome. That's good. And where can they find you in case you want to be found?
You can find me on Twitter and my YouTube channel that I haven't posted on in 9 years. But
listen,
I'm
okay.
really trying to make some time. It's just so hard.
I remember when you posted your first video, I was like, "Oh, sweet, Zach Bivens is
Yeah.
on YouTube. That's cool." And it lasted like, I don't know, 3 weeks.
I'm trying. It's so hard to make time. Literally, like my life is just so busy right now. But
Yeah,
I definitely, I've
it's
actually planned a collaboration with a content creator. So there's something on the books. So there are things coming.
there you go.
We'll get to the point of posting regularly someday.
It's really sad because I'm normally really good at this, but it's been so long, I don't even remember the name of the channel.
It's just my name.
Oh, I thought it had a name. No, am I crazy?
No, I started with the name. I'm like,
Okay,
I should just change it to my name. My name is way bigger than the channel name can ever be.
Yeah,
So.
I'm pretty sure it had a name. Like, hold on.
It did.
Okay,
But yeah, you can just look for my name.
You're good. You're good. We will add it to the link just in case. We'll get it in the description and everything below. But thank you so much for hanging out with me this evening. It's been a pleasure as always to catch up with you. And even though we don't have a clue when it's going to be, I wish you the best of luck at Worlds.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Well, if you enjoyed this, guys, please definitely go follow Zach. Everything will be in the description below for him to found. If you didn't yet, hit the like button. And as always, we'll catch you in the next.